Hello, hello, hello. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome. For those of you who we've seen in the past and have come to join us again, welcome back. My name is Nim Grinvald. I am the technical evangelist here at Kintone, and we've got a great session for you tonight on color-coded maps. Just some housekeeping before we really get into the meat of things tonight. First of all, if you have not already downloaded the code and the slide deck, it's available for you, bit.ly/KDP underscore CC map. And then if you have not already done so, this is critical. Please make sure you sign up for a Kintone developer account and a developer license. There's going to be a point during our work tonight where we're going to ask you to start creating things on Kintone. If you don't have that account set up, you don't have that developer license, you will not be able to participate. You'll only be able to follow along. So I encourage you to sign up for those accounts so that you can maximize your participation here. Okay. You want to download the code, you want to download the slide deck, you're not quite sure how to do that, you're going to click on that link that we provided, and then you'll see a page. When you click on it, it'll look like this. This is GitHub. This is a gist, and you'll be able to download the zip right over here. If you want to not download the whole thing, if you're selecting just specific things, you can scroll down and pick up the other files over there. Signing up for a developer account. Okay, so again, this is something you want to make sure to do if you want to continue to participate for the duration of our session today. This is going to be how you do it. You're going to click on this link. Make sure you are using Chrome or Firefox. Do not use Safari. It will not work. And then also accept your cookies. And then you'll create a Kintone subdomain once you've got your developer license. You'll go ahead and click on this link. Your subdomain, you can only use specific characters, hyphens, alphanumeric, lowercase. That's it. We're going to build a color-coded map. It's going to look like this. It'll be a map. We're going to be able to hover over it, and we're going to be able to see a tooltip of the country and a dollar figure. And that's what we're here to do with no servers visualizing this data. If you are a front-end engineer, you want to spend less time setting up your back-end infrastructure, this is a terrific workshop for you. This workshop is going to enable you to concentrate on the design, the UX, the UI of your project. There are many other reasons why you could be here. Maybe you're interested in data analytics. Maybe you really want to, just get interested, like you're interested in serverless tools. That's perfectly okay for you to be wherever you are. We're happy to have you. And a little bit about me. So I am a technical evangelist here at Kintone. And I came to, and what a technical evangelist is somebody, well, what I do is I share with people what's possible using our tool, what kind of problems it can solve and how it can help them. The reason why I like talking about what I do is because if you are studying software engineering or computer science, and you've got this sense that, well, the only job that I can go to is software engineering. Like, to be a software engineer, I want to dissuade you of that notion and show you that there are plenty of opportunities for you to have technical work that doesn't necessarily involve coding all the time. And so I like to share about my background so you get a sense of kind of where I've been. And that way, if there's something about, where I've been that interests you, I'm happy, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to be a resource for you so you can see what's possible for yourself in your own career. As for me, I went through a coding bootcamp called Hack Reactor that has since been bought out by Galvanize. And I straight up, like, I learned how to be a software engineer. Like, I came in a certain way after this boot camp. My brain worked differently. I could now think like an engineer and solve problems like an engineer, and I could code, and it was amazing. From that role, I went into a role as a sales engineer, and a sales engineer is somebody who, if you are interested in purchasing a piece of software, you call up the company and you say, hey, I've got these requirements, A, B, C, and D, and can your software help me? Well, the person on the other end of the phone They might say, "Wow, that's pretty complicated. Let me talk to one. Let's have you get on the phone with one of our technical experts, and they'll be able to figure out whether we're a good fit." That person is called a sales engineer. You may also hear some other names for them as well, solutions engineer, for example. But you know, it's what I started to do with this company, Kintone. I loved it. I'm very good at it. I became our lead sales engineer, and then I ended up managing the team before I moved into this position as a technical evangelist. I also want to introduce, again, I shouted them out before, but before I proceed, Will and Nikki. Will and Nikki, can you both wave your hands? They're joining us from the wonderful Tokyo, Japan, as part of our developer program. So if you have any questions about, you know, what is the Kintone Developer Program? How can I be more active in the Kintone Developer community? This stuff looks really interesting. Where do I go to learn more? These folks are your people. Make sure to reach out to them and they'll take care of you. Also, as you put in questions today, they're going to make sure that you get your questions answered as you put them in the chat. Our colleagues, Christine and Zach, are also joining us here today from Be My Apps. And it's a pleasure to have you guys with us today. You'll hear more from them later. Okay, so what are you here for? Well, this is what we're going to be talking about today. We want to give you a big picture. What exactly it is that we're doing here. That, you know, we're talking about this color-coded map. You know, we're going to be creating a Kintone app. We're going to be talking about amCharts, which is the data visualization library that we use to display these snazzy graphs and charts. You know, and we'll learn how and why calling REST APIs from Kintone is important. The big picture, though, is, you know, this is why we're doing what we're doing. This is how to this is what Kintone is and how to do data analytics in Kintone, and then how to begin the process of piping your own data into Kintone from your various other sources. So that's the arc of today's workshop. Let's go ahead and start with getting the big picture. And the place where I think it's most appropriate to start is around the scope of traditional data analytics. So, you know, when you talk about data analytics, typically we're talking about, you know, making things look nice, making data look nice in particular, so that it's easy to understand and we can then get actionable insights from it. And that's kind of like the alpha to omega. That's the A to Z of data analytics. It's where we take issue, actually, because what we ask is, okay, it's great that we got this actionable insight. It's great that we understand the data and that we've made it pretty, but is it actually doing the job that we think it's going to do, right? Are we sharing the insights effectively to other members of our team or other departments who can actually, you know, take this actionable insight and turn it into action? And so one of the key pieces that's missing in traditional data analytics, and for that matter, like the experience of teamwork in general, is this sense of unified communication. You've got your insights that are, you know, on maybe, you know, 4 or 7 different platforms or different web applications. You store that data in Excel or in Access on various different channels. You know, the data lives in multiple places. The conversations about the data are in multiple places. So this information is not being shared effectively. So it's unclear then, you know, where, you know, not just like where is everything, but where are we talking about everything? Sort of what you could, I suppose, consider at some level metadata, but is really just, you know, like all of these pointers, right? All of this conversation. Um, this is why Kintone is special and why we're talking about it today. Because what it allows you to do is to have your data and have your conversations about the data all in one place and all organized in a sensible way. So what that allows for is like as increased productivity um, and collaboration and teamwork, and really delivering on, you know, the actual intentions of why you're doing data analytics in the first place. What is Kintone? Kintone is a platform. It's a platform for building apps. What is an app? We'll get to that in just a moment. what I want you to imagine is, instead of needing to hand code something in order to build a database, you can actually spin up a database quickly and easily. And then on top of that, you can then make it very easy for teams to share and collaborate on that data. That's what Kintone is, and that's you know its purpose is to make teamwork better globally. So when you're using Kintone at its potential, I've what you'll see is you've got, and then this is a screenshot inside of Kintone. What you've got is your data in one place, your conversations on the same page, and so then you're just dropped in to exactly where you need to be, and you're notified accordingly, so that the right people are seeing the right thing at the right time. This actually ties in with our functionality around workflows, which is making sure that your people are seeing the right things at the right time and can then have conversations about it in predictable and useful places. So I brought up before, what is an app? An app is the main building block in Kintone. You can imagine it as like a spreadsheet of a table in a database where you're storing data in records. And apps are very simple to build and create. If you're already very technical, um, they're pretty quick to pick up. If you're not technical, the advantage for you is that suddenly things become accessible that weren't accessible to you before, because people didn't design for your technical success in mind. So what you can do with apps is you can build them with a drag and drop interface, very much like what you're seeing over here. And what's valuable for you to know, if you're a coder, a developer, a software engineer, or somebody who plays in that area, is that apps are extensively customizable with client-side JavaScript. So what does this mean? If you are highly technical, you can enhance the apps with JavaScript. If you're not technical at all, you can build stuff that you need without coding. Stuff that will make your work easier and the work life of your colleagues easier too. And that ultimately, and here's the point, that ultimately is designed to fulfill the promise of data analytics in the first place, right? Like, why are you making things pretty? Why are you making the data easy to understand? Why are you making those actionable insights? So that the right people can do things about that at the right time. And it's that kind of that last mile, that last piece of the puzzle, that is what Kintone brings all together. What does that mean for you as a developer, or somebody who plays in this space? As a developer, you can enhance Kintone by building and sharing extensions, or by building specific customizations. You can also support the use of Kintone as what I like to call a command center. So I want you to imagine that you've got like your kind of your one-stop shop, your single source of day-to-day work, your home base. And that home base needs to plug in with a lot of other web applications or tools. And the more useful, like the more it's plugged in with those tools, the more useful it is, the more it can sort of at its peak be a command center, really. So that's where developers can contribute in assisting the build of Kintone into a command center, and then also in enhancing its functionality. And you can do that in a variety of different ways. Kintone makes available open APIs. You've got an open REST API. It's very well documented. The same with our JavaScript API. We've got the ability for you to create API tokens so that you can securely interface with Kintone through programmatically. We have webhooks, so you can kick off events that are on Kintone and push them into your other web applications, as well as plugins, which you can imagine are like packages that non-technical people can install. Ways to change the look and feel and the behavior of Kintone, and then very precise permission controls, so you can make sure that the right people are allowed to see the right thing and nobody else is, to the degree that's needed. I want to share with you some examples of, when I talk about customizing the look and feel of Kintone. I'm not kidding. What you see over here is a Space Invaders emulation on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, we've got something called a bubble chart. And so these are both built from customizations that we'll be doing a little bit of that tonight. So if you're learning and if you're here to grow and develop yourself as a software engineer or someone in the field, then Kintone's great as a tool to help you keep learning JavaScript for positioning. If you want to contribute your learnings to tech blogs, and then also to give back, to share your projects with our community and with your community. Now, if you're here because you're interested in having Kintone be a source of revenue for you, that's perfect. And here are some of your options. So you can build and sell extensions in our marketplace. You can use Kintone as part of like a business consulting arm, like going into companies and identifying how they can be more efficient, how to achieve their business goals. Kintone can very much be a tool in your arsenal for that. And then also being paid to develop Kintone customizations for customers. All of these are on the table. And I just want to seed some of these ideas for you if you're one way or the other, that like what ultimately you can do with this right now. All right. So how does all of this relate to building projects with no servers? Well, first of all, Kintone acts as a serverless database in a certain way. Kintone becomes your server running your database. It lets you create your databases with a graphical user interface, and what that allows you to do is focus on the more interesting or important parts of the project that you have, which could be your front end work. Okay, let's create a Kintone app. So again, when I am saying an app, I want you to think of like a table and a database, or a spreadsheet and a workbook with more functionality, with more benefits. So there are a lot of different apps that we can make. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over the steps to build an app, and then we'll do it as an exercise. I'll give you some time to build that out for yourself. Okay. First thing you're going to do, again, you must sign up for a Kintone developer account. You must create a Kintone subdomain. And then once you set that up, you'll need to check your email. You'll see a subject that'll say like, welcome to Kintone, one more step to ... And then you'll go ahead and you'll click on activate now, and you'll set up your initial password at your _ subdomain, whatever you put over here as your subdomain. When you log in, you'll see a page that looks like this. This is your admin panel, and you'll click on Kintone. Once you do that, here you are. Welcome to Kintone. This is our portal. On the left-hand side right over here, this is an announcements pane. You can imagine this as like a blank canvas that you can add links to, or images, or graphs, charts, filtered lists. Spaces, which is essentially like a way of grouping conversations by people who are frequently talking about the same thing, and who have data that they're tracking around that same topic. You can imagine like a space for HR, a space for marketing, a space for sales. And then we've got apps over here, which again, these are the core building blocks of Kintone. You'll create your first app by clicking on this plus sign. And as soon as you do, you'll be taken to a page that says Kintone Marketplace. There are many different ways to build a Kintone app. You can import data from a spreadsheet. You can use a template. We're going to create an app from scratch. So that's the button that you're going to click. And then when you do, you'll be taken to our form builder page. Front and center, we've got this place where you can rename your app. We're going to be creating a board game app. And so we'll rename board game app. It'll look, that'll change. And then we've got on the left-hand side of the page, we've got our palette of fields. On the right-hand side, we've got our canvas. What we're going to do is we're going to drag fields from our palette to our canvas. In this first example, we're going to drag a text field from the palette to the canvas. And once we do and we let go, we can then hover over the that text field. You'll see a gear wheel at the top right corner, and there'll be an opportunity to click on settings. What we're going to do is we're going to change the name of that text field from text, which is the default, to name. and then we'll hit save. And then that's it. We've just renamed our text field. We're going to add one more field over here, which is a drop-down field to our board game app. We're going to take the drop-down field, drag it from the palette to the canvas, and then we're going to hover over the options, the settings, that gear wheel on the right-hand corner of that field, and we're going to start configuring the drop-down. First, we're going to change the name from drop-down to type. And then we're going to add we're going to change the two options that exist into abstract and area control. These are two different types of board games. And then we're going to click on a plus sign to add a third option, which will be drafting. After that, we'll hit save. And now, real quick, you might be wondering, as you're looking at these settings, hey, there's something on the bottom called a field code. And this is basically like the unique identifier for this field that the system uses. So it's possible that you can give multiple fields the same name, and it might be appropriate for the users, but it definitely won't be appropriate for Kintone. Kintone needs to guarantee in some way a unique name for each field. It does that by using these field codes. These are default field codes. You'll see this again. There will be a time, probably about an hour from now, where I will say, hey, do you remember that conversation that we had about field codes? This is where they get used in the back end in our code. So for now, you can just, flag this item over here. Hey, there's something called field codes. This will show up later. And this is what we'll be talking about. Okay, so after you do that, after you've updated the name, you've updated the type, we're going to release this app into the wild, into production. And we do that by clicking on that blue button, Activate App. As soon as you do that, that's it. Congratulations, you made your first Kintone app. You can always come back and change it later. You can, there's plenty of ways to iterate this app as you go. That's one of the beautiful things about Kintone is you're not on the hook for like a massive rollout the first time. You can incrementally improve your processes and your progress. Okay, so what we're going to do at this point, you'll then click on your portal. This is over here. You'll go home back to your portal. And now this portal looks very familiar, except that we've added an app. We'll click on that app. And what you could expect to see when an app is fully developed is it'll look something like this. You'll have your data over here front and center. You'll be able to drill down into specific records by clicking on these blue thumbnails. And then you can add new records by clicking on that plus sign. You can go into the app settings to make changes to the app and update those changes by clicking on that gear wheel. All right, so I'm going to turn you loose at this point. Please take, we'll say 7 minutes, and we'll, adjust that up or down as needed. But, for now, go ahead and get started. Create your first Kintone app, your board game DB app. And what we're going to do next is talk about displaying amCharts on Kintone. amCharts are a programming library that is designed for data visualization. So it's basically like a collection of different charts and graphs with snazzy graphics and highly customizable, highly configurable settings that you can check out more of by going to amcharts.com. We're going to use it in our project to do a few things. One is to show you how to do data visualization in Kintone, and two, we're kind of the bigger lesson over here in this specific piece is to show you how to add customizations and use JavaScript customizations in Kintone. So typically the way that you would use amCharts in front-end JavaScript, very much like you would use any library, is in your code, you would reference the library. Then if it's gonna, if it's a data visualization library, you need to have it hooked to your front end somewhere. So in your HTML, you need some kind of like a root div or a chart div somewhere that the JavaScript can hook into and do something with. Then on the JavaScript side, in addition to instantiating chart, you also need to push data into the chart so that it can do something with it. So you need all of these pieces. But on Kintone, it's actually much simpler. So first of all, we don't need we don't need to grab an HTML element in Kintone. Kintone has an API method that it exposes that'll do just that. So we don't need to worry about HTML. When it comes to referencing the file, we're going to do that on Kintone's configuration backend. We don't need to do that in the code. And what about the data? Well, the data's already there because Kintone's, an app, right? Sorry, there are apps on Kintone. You can remember an app is like a table in a database, or a spreadsheet in a workbook. So the data is already there. So all we need to do in this customization then is just define the chart and configure, how it's going to look. So what we're going to do that is we're going to create a new app from a CSV. Now, before we created an app from scratch, if you had some extra time, you may have spun up one from a template in our marketplace. Now we're going to give you a CSV, and then we're going to add JavaScript to the app so that it can take advantage of amCharts and then interact with that data to create a snazzy chart. Okay. We're going to do this just like last time. I'm going to go over, these are the steps, and then I'll turn it over to you to take action, and then we will regroup. The first thing we're going to do is create a new Kintone app from the CSV file. Then we're going to add the amCharts libraries. We're going to add a custom JS file that is our chart instance, and then we will redeploy the Kintone app. Let's get started. The file that we're going to work with is CSV data on highest earnings by country with esports. So it'll be the top 100 countries' total earned prize money in US dollars and the player count. And then we're going to be able to get a prize money per player. Get the CSV from here if you have not already. And you'll see it's 01 underscore esports underscore earnings.csv. And Nikki, would you please drop this link in the chat so that if people need to go back here, they can really easily. Awesome. Thank you. And what you're going to do is make sure you download that CSV and then add an app again. We'll go back to our portal, click on that plus sign. And this time, instead of creating an app from scratch, we're going to create it from a CSV. As soon as you click on that button, you'll be taken to a wizard that will walk you through how to upload the CSV. Now, a lot of this stuff we already did. So for example, on the next page, it'll tell you, make sure that the CSV is properly scrubbed and set up in the following ways. You don't need to worry about that. We've done it for you. You'll click check all, and then you'll continue to the upload screen. You will browse to find the file, and then when you do, it'll give you an initial preview to make sure that everything is the way that you're expecting. There's no action that you need to take at this point, although it's good to know that part of what you're doing over here is you are mapping columns in your CSV file to fields in your Kintone app. All of these settings, all of these mappings are correct. They don't need to be modified, but you could in a future, if you need to, if you're uploading a file in the future for use elsewhere, you could mess with these mappings if you needed to. Instead, you're just going to click convert, and that's it. That's how you create a new Kintone app from the file. You'll know that you've done it because you'll be taken back to this page, this portal, and there will be a new app over here, 01 underscore esports underscore earnings. Now you'll click on it, and we'll start adding the JavaScript libraries to this app. Once you click on this app, you'll be taken to a list of the record list of all of the data that was in this CSV file. We're going to move to the app settings over here. You'll click on this gear wheel. And now I'm going to take you to the place where you will upload the JavaScript. Here we are in the app settings. This is the place we go to when we want to configure our app. we're going to, in our app settings, click on the tab that's called App Settings. And once we do, we're going to go to the second column, the second item down, click on JavaScript and CSS customization. This is where the action is going to happen right now. From there, you'll see that we can add a link or upload a file. The first things we're going to do is we're going to add links. These are references to JavaScript files that are being hosted elsewhere. And we're going to add these 4 URLs in this order. Okay, so you'll add those 4 in this order, and then we're going to upload the custom JavaScript file. This is our instance of the table. You'll get that by clicking on the link that Nikki dropped. Oh, Nikki Tatalovich, thank you very much. We've got our Kintone Nikki who's on top of this, but like, I so appreciate that you're willing to have me like accidentally call you out and for you to like just give us an assist anyway. So like super grateful for that. Thank you. Kintone Nikki, yeah, thanks for dropping the link in too. So you've got we referenced these libraries that are hosted elsewhere. Now we've got to upload our custom file. We're going to get it by going to that link bit.ly /kdp_ccmap, and then we're going to look for a file called 03_map_script.js. We're going to download it. There it is. Downloaded it on our machine. And right over here, when our in this list of 4 URLs that we just referenced, we're going to add a file, and it's here that we will then add our recently downloaded map script. We'll do, remember, it's got to be in this order. So map script will actually be last. In other words, we will load all of the necessary program libraries from amCharts, and then we will add our custom chart instance. Once we do that, then we click save, and then we redeploy the Kintone app. What do we mean by redeploy? Well, we created the app already. Now we're modifying it. So in order for your modification to populate, you need to click on that update app button in blue. If you don't do this, you won't see any changes. It'll be like you've just messed around in your development environment and never pushed to production. So make sure after you've created those 4 references to the URLs, and after you've uploaded the MapScript file and you've got them in that particular order, then click save and then click update app. The results that you should see will speak for themselves. When you go into your app, you'll see a world map with this color-coded map tooltips and color gradients on top of your data. All right. Folks, this is your time to get started. Please take the next 10 minutes and go ahead and spin this up. And then I'm not sure what you're looking for exactly, but if you're looking at more JavaScript content, Vijay, who we're just talking to right now, he leads a group called JavaScript LA, which just delivers really great. They're just a really great group of people to learn with, like high energy sessions, a lot of fun, a lot of good knowledge. So I just want to just quick shout out Vijay's JavaScript LA could be a really great resource for you as well. But again, I'm not quite sure what it is you're looking for, but if it's JavaScript, that group has got you too.
If Vijay's okay with sharing a screen, you could go through this together during the break. Vijay, we can fix it really quickly, actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So can you click on?
There you go.
Yeah. You can click on the drop down.
Accounts
and the first one, yeah. Reading Japanese.
This is one really elaborate way to show off your language skills, Vijay.
Oh yeah, there it is. And then it is Gengo, but there's like a larger menu on top of that. So if you can go to the top and click on the second pencil icon.
Oh, second, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Rushing gun here.
That one.
For those of you who are just joining us, I too cannot read Japanese.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And then
There
go
we
back.
go.
And then if you refresh the page, everything should be in English.
So so yeah, this is like my
Oh. Oh, right. Okay.
and then like I have this console error which says can't read
Yeah.
type.
I think I know why. We'll be going through the code later, but the code goes through the field codes of the fields that you have inside the application.
Mm-hmm.
And we've sort of pre-written the code so that it will be specifying the default field codes that appear when you create the application. And the default field codes are different if your settings are in Japanese.
Oh, okay, okay.
So what we'll do, we're going to fix this in 30 seconds. If you can go to the settings.
Back over here.
Yeah.
So you mean field codes, these things, right?
No, what he means is when you go into the field settings, you hover over any one of those fields and you click on that. Yeah,
Yeah,
click on that icon, then click on settings. If you scroll down to the bottom, do you
there we
see
go.
this field code?
Yeah.
So this is going to be, so for anybody who's using this in English language, this is going to be different. And because the code that you uploaded references the field codes, it needs to be exact.
I see.
Everything is breaking because it is in characters that it wasn't expecting.
All right. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So then it's probably looking for this, and then it's like, oh, I can't find this. And
Can you click on the settings for total earned prize money? So hover over total earned prize money,
right here.
click
Okay.
on that settings and change that field code to capital N and then otherwise lowercase UMBER, so it becomes number,
All right.
underscore 1.
I think it's just that one, right?
If you can click save and save again. And the other field that we're going to change is
Country, right?
it's the country code. Country code.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're going to change that to text underscore 0, but with a capital T.
okay.
Yeah. And those identifiers should be fixed. And you can save the form and then update the app.
Okay.
And it's probably fixed.
Okay, there we go.
There we
That's what it
go.
was.
All right, yay.
Yay.
So
Excellent.
about 50 minutes ago, I said, remember those field, you're going to want to remember these field code things because they're going to come up. And I said it would be an hour. We're 10 minutes early on those field code things. And I want to thank Vijay for bringing it home.
Awesome. All right, we'll share screen back to you now.
And Vijay, thank you for that really insightful lesson on localization and globalization. Now, let's look through the code. So, referenced a bunch of libraries, and then we uploaded a custom file. And so let's understand what exactly we uploaded. The first, or uploaded or referenced. So the first script that we referenced is the core library that's needed for all amCharts exhibits. Then we needed the specific library for creating the charts that we were after. This is the maps library. We included a script for worldlow.js, which is a geodata package that contains data of world maps. And then animated.js, that script is a particular kind of thematic transition that we were using that keeps things looking good. And then that last file, map script, is what we built custom that pulls the whole thing together. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to drill down into map scripts to understand how things are working under the hood. And map script has got two parts to it. The first part is Kintone event and header and loading map. So basically building the map on Kintone and making sure that that map launches at the right time. The second portion is to get the data and configure the map. So once we've got this map launched, we want to be pulling data that's exposed in Kintone and then make sure that the map is presenting the way that we are expecting. So those are the two parts of the code we're going to go with. Let's dive in. And so the first thing we're going to look at is the first 13 lines around events, Kintone events. So what are Kintone events? Well, if you're going to be coding something in a browser, browsers have events like on page load, for example, so that your code executes at certain parts of the browser loading process. And Kintone loads in a very predictable way and provides hooks for you to put like hooks for you to use when launching your code, so that your code will launch, that will trigger at specific times. So these are the events. So we have an event called app.record.index.show, which basically means when you see the record list, please do the following. In other words, run this function. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull what we call the space element. Now, I remember I said, hey, we don't need to mess with HTML. We have the Kintone API exposes a method that allows us to grab the right div. Well, this is the method. It's called getHeaderSpaceElement. And what it does is in the header of Kintone, we've grabbed the div, we've did it in JavaScript using a method, and then we can begin to style it, give it certain heights and margins and borders and colors. That's what's happening over here. From there, we are instantiating some of these themes that we brought in with these libraries. So the animated theme, for example, and then also creating the map instance. So spinning up a chart. It's going to be a certain kind of chart. It's going to have a particular kind of geodata. It's going to be a particular kind of projection. All of these parameters need to be set. So for example, world low, like we were talking about, this is the map of the world with low resolution in terms of country shapes and positions. Now we also have world high, higher resolution, but the trade-off is it's slower to work with. We don't need world high, world low is enough. And then the Miller projection is a particular kind of way of formatting a map so that it displays in a certain, basically takes a round earth and displays it in a rectangle. There are various different kinds of projections. The most famous one, I think, is called Mercator or Mercator. We're using the Miller cylindrical, which distorts countries a little differently. And then the Miller, well, let me be a little bit more specific. So the Miller is better at object areas, but not at directions. Since we're comparing country areas, this is the most relevant. And then the Winkle triple is it minimizes distortions in area and direction and distance. It's like a compromise projection. Okay, so from here, we want to be able to display the country shapes on the map so that we can hover over them. So we've got this, we've already got this polygon series that's been pre-formatted for us. This is what amCharts provides. We're going to exclude Antarctica. And from there, we're going to, configure these settings some more. So this series of polygons that represent all the different countries in the world, we're going to use the imported geodata that includes names and the center point. And then we're also going to display that information as a tooltip in the country center when we hover over with a mouse. We also need to set rules for the way that the colors are going to be displayed, right? So dark green being like the heat is the hottest, and lightest green being like, there's no activity over there. We need to create this gradient, and we need to set the rules for that. So that's what this segment does over here between lines 34 and 35. And then we also need to set up the tooltip. What is the information that's going to be in it? And we want the name of the country and the value of the dollar earned by player, and that's what we set up over here. Okay, so at this point, we need to start getting data, right? So we brought in this library, we instantiated the chart. Some point in time, we need to get the data. So how do we get the data? Well, Kintone exposes the data in something called the event object. What we're doing is we are grabbing the array of all records that we have, and then we are mapping the values in that array. We're mapping that array into a new array, and it's going to be a one-to-one match between each record and a new format. What we're returning is essentially the list of all of the country IDs and the value of the money, the prize money per player, which is then going to be passed into amCharts as data over here. So now we have this polygon series object, which it has all of the different countries in it, and it's got the data that corresponds to the tooltip as well. So let's talk a little bit more about this event object. In Kintone, an event object refers to an object that's filled with record data. In this case, the event object has got all of the data that's in the list view. And event objects are going to contain the field values of the records that are listed on the page. So if you need to hook into, like if you're asking yourself, well, I need to get this information in Kintone based on what I'm seeing on the page right now, where do I go for that? It's probably in the event object. And you can actually see that for yourself. If you open up your console and you, and while you're on this page and you look, you open up the Kintone object and you look at the, you can look for the event object over here and you can actually see the whole list of records that we've just uploaded. Okay, so once we've created this, what we actually did was we created this JSON object, and now we need to push it into, oh, no, looks like I'm a little, oh, okay, sorry, folks. I went a little ahead of ourselves. So I'm gonna slow down and come back a little bit. We talked about the event object. We talked about how we're returning in this map. We're returning this this array of objects that have the ID and the value. And you'll notice over here record.text_0 and record.number_1. So these are the field codes. In fact, this is, if you were here during the break, this is exactly what Vijay was running into when he was using Kintone with a Japanese internationalization. So these are the field codes that Vijay had to fix, and they show up in our code right over in these two places. And then after that, we take this polygon data and we push it into the polygon series so that amCharts knows this is the data to put in. There's some more settings we're configuring over here. We turned on something called an export menu. We've aligned it and moved it to a certain place, and we set up a background color. And then we also have controls to zoom in or zoom out of the map, to create like a home button that centers, and then to disable mouse wheel zooming. So if you're accidentally, like if you're scrolling with your mouse, your trackpad, that it's not, it's preventing a conflict with the Kintone records below. Okay, so that's a lot, and we'll park it here for questions. Can you talk about events a little bit more? Sure, there you are going through your web application, right? I'm generalizing it. We're not even talking about Kintone, right? You're on Gmail, and every time you open up a new email, every time you refresh the page, every time you click reply, you are, something is happening, right? And Google might want to make it easy for you to do something, to choose to do something when certain very common things happen. Kintone is the same way, right? There are certain common things that are happening. You're going to open up an app and you're going to see a list view. You're going to open up a record and you're going to see the detail view. You're going to save an edited record. You're going to create a new record. This and a dozen more, probably a dozen more at least different events that happen. And if we're going to if we're going to want to customize Kintone, we're going to want to make something special, then it makes sense for us to want to hook into those specific events. And so Kintone makes it very easy to do that. We've got these events, and you include them in your code. You've got a little event handler, like a listener, that says when this event happens, do blah blah blah, and that's how you code in Kintone. It's very sort of on a high level. It's very event-driven coding.
So you were talking about the events earlier in like a slide, and I just wanted to know, like, if you could go back and show that, because I saw like you were setting up something like a function to do something with the data.
Yeah, very good. Here we are.
Right. So, okay. So you had app record index show. So like, I'm guessing that must mean like when you load this particular index page with the spreadsheet.
That's right. These event names are not like not really well consumable for humans. So it doesn't say like the event name isn't, show list view. The event name is app.record.index.show. Not the greatest name for us humans, but this and a dozen other events, app.record.create something, like creates, when a record is created.
Gotcha. Okay. And then basically, the other thing, I guess, was you're hooking in the amCharts, right? The amCharts library, which gets put into a Kintone object. Is that correct? I saw you create like a new amCharts in one of the code samples.
Yeah. Well, actually, what happens is when we load those scripts up by referencing them, they actually get loaded into the global scope. So in the next slide, for example, we've got am4 core, right? Like, where does this am4 core come from? It's not in Kintone. What we've done is we've created these scripts that we've referenced, and they've put their own objects in the global scope, and now we reference them.
Makes sense. Okay. All right, cool. Yeah, I was just trying to follow along. No, I think I got it.
Cool. We're going to move on to the final segment of our evening tonight, which is about calling REST APIs from Kintone. We got a sense of why you would use Kintone and where it could be helpful. We showed you how to use Kintone. We then built our data visualization on Kintone, but that data visualization is, it's nice, but the point isn't to like typically the point is not to like grab public data from esports and then like show it as a project. We want to actually be able to have it be useful. We have our own data that's located somewhere, and we want to pipe it into Kintone. That's where REST APIs come in. And once we talk about how to do this, we'll have the complete, soup to nuts, high level understanding of how to use Kintone for data visualization purposes. So what we're going to do is we're going to pipe data in from public APIs as an example for, how to hook Kintone up with, with data that's held elsewhere. Now, the way REST APIs work are, pretty much like what you'd expect in a restaurant. There you are, you order food, but you don't go to the kitchen to order food. You ask a server to go and get the food for you, which they do. Then they take care of business. Then they come back and they present you with your food. And that's exactly the same thing that happens over here on the web. There you are using your computer as a browser. You type in, google.com and then your computer shoots off to google.com. Google.com does a whole bunch of stuff on the back end that you don't touch. Excuse me. And then it presents you with whatever you asked for in a request and response style. But when you are using when you're using a Kintone customization, it doesn't work in that way, because you are executing what's called client-side JavaScript. In other words, there's no server that you're calling. You have a piece of JavaScript that's running on your computer, and if you try to call another computer out there from yours directly without that intermediary, without that server, typically that causes problems. Those problems are called cross-origin resource sharing errors. In other words, CORS errors is what you'll hear them called. Simply because for security purposes, it's not allowed to do that. Let me give you an example. Okay, so here we are on google.com, and I just wrote some code in the console that is telling the computer to call, that's on google.com, to call XKCD, a very famous webcomic website. And access is denied. You would, and that in fact is what you would expect, right? Like if you're on google.com, you don't want your computer while it's on google.com to be going anywhere other than google.com. Think about the ways that your browser could be hijacked. If I was on google.com, but secretly my computer is communicating with gettheirpassword.com, could be problematic. So this kind of setup is prohibited for some really legitimate reasons. What we need then to do, if we're going to be talking to computers that are on the internet, in our client side executed code, we need some way of having creating some kind of an intermediary server. In fact, we have a method for that where Kintone acts as a proxy server. In other words, instead of you on your JavaScript code calling xkcd.com, you're going to hand that request over to the Kintone server. You're going to say, hey, listen, I want to make this request. I can't do it directly because I'm a client. I need you as a server to go and interface with that other computer, bring that information back to me, and then show it to me. And so that proxy method, Kintone.proxy, is going to allow you to call REST APIs from the client side without running into CORS errors. The method is displayed over here, and it is pretty much what you would expect from like a method that calls REST APIs. You need the address of the place you're going to, right? Like if I'm requesting a package from somewhere, I want to know like, where am I going? What am I expecting to get from them, which is the method? What are they expecting? What kind of package are they expecting to get from me? There's the method. What kind of other information do they need from me in order to process the request? Like, do they need special authorization? Do they need data from me? So all of these different parameters in this function give me what I need in order for this request to be successful. Sherry is asking, how would you define proxy? A proxy is something that does something on my behalf. In this case, a proxy server is a server that acts to interact with other computers on my behalf. Sherry, does that answer your question? Well, yeah, exactly. It does something on your behalf, like a proxy voter. For example, in the U.S. election, you had the opportunity. Very good, yeah, proxy voter. In this election, you had the opportunity, like if I am bedridden, and I literally am not able to fill out my own ballot, I might ask my spouse to fill it out for me. My spouse would be like a proxy voter. You also have proxy shareholders, right? Which is, someone doing shareholding stuff on your behalf. Great. Yes, proxy shareholder. And there are probably some other great examples of proxies as well. So this method is going to, this is what it's going to input, and it's going to output a promise object. If you drop these two parameters on the back, otherwise it'll be a callback style function. If words like callback and promise are not familiar to you, we've got great content on that you can check out on our work about Kintone promise, the promises with Kintone. So let me give you an example of what it'll look like when we use Kintone proxy. So you'll notice over here, when we show the list view, in other words, on this event, then send this information to then execute this Kintone proxy method. In other words, send this information to the Kintone server, and then return something. And so you'll see we're able to call xkcd even though we're on Kintone.com. Why this is one thing that you should know about Kintone Proxy is that it can be used on all browsers, including everybody's favorite browser, Internet Explorer. And again, the reason why we do it in this way is that we can make REST API calls from the client, from the browser, without being blocked by these cross-origin resource sharing errors. Where does the name Kintone come from? Oh, what a great question. So Kintone in Japan is a golden cloud, and it's named after the legend of the Monkey King who flew around on his golden cloud. This prior to the time when clouds were like the thing that everybody used to talk about the internet. After that happened, we changed our logo and our imagery. The Monkey King, Sherry. It's the Monkey King.
If anybody's watched Dragon Ball before, it's the name of the cloud that Goku is on when he's younger. A very fast cloud.
You know, we've been delivering these sessions for quite a while at this point, and nobody's ever asked us where does the name Kintone come from. So Sherry, so much credit to you for making our day, so we can talk about the Monkey King. Let's talk about what we did. We talked about what Kintone is and why it could be important for you or useful, and how you might get the most out of using it. We then showed you how to create your first apps in Kintone, and then how to hook in a JavaScript library like amCharts to do data visualization. We built our color-coded map, and then we talked about how you would call a REST API to pipe in your own data onto Kintone for your own data visualization needs. So the reason why you'd use Kintone in your project, again, no need to set up or maintain a server. The database you can easily create with a GUI. You've got this front end that's baked in that can utilize the database data, and you can hook into other REST APIs from this front end JavaScript. Here are some ideas for what you can work on next if you're a developer who wants to try out more data visualization on Kintone. So first of all, try out some other amCharts. They've got plenty of demos on their website. Link to different libraries, try reusing the code, break something, fix something, make something, have fun. You may also want to engage more with public APIs to get actionable data and then, share it. If you're interested in using Kintone as a backend database and to retrieve data via Kintone's REST API, we've got a great tutorial. Will, I believe you built this tutorial. This is where you're using node.js to call Kintone's REST APIs. This is a cool place to check that out. And if you have questions, you want to get help, we've got a few places where you can go. Now that you are a member of the Kintone developer program, we've got a community where you can ask questions over there. And there's also, of course, Stack Overflow, which we check and answer.
I want to thank all our community partners. We did have a couple groups that shared. So I want to thank Flatiron School, HackBuddy, and Vancouver Data Visualization.
And for those of you who joined us today, I want to thank you for taking the time. You could have chosen to do a lot of things in this time period, and you chose to spend it with us. We don't take that for granted. Peace.